So good to see all of you. I'm thrilled to kick things off and welcome you all to today's symposium. My name is Victor Pickard. I'm a professor here at Annenberg, and I co-direct the Media Inequality and Change Center, the MIC Center, as we call it, along with Sarah Jackson and Todd Wolfson. Just a few words about the MIC Center, which is a partnership between Rutgers and Penn. We conduct research on structural inequities in our media. We study non-commercial alternatives to profit-driven models. And we look at how activists can use media to shift narratives, build power, and fight for social justice. We host events like today, as well as larger conferences. We're hosting the Union for Democratic Communications here in October. I emphatically encourage all of you to come back to Philly to attend that conference. It should be a lot of fun. We see ourselves as not just a traditional research center, but also as a kind of activist center, a policy shop that tries to broaden conversations and push the parameters around how we can democratize our core information and communication systems. So toward this aim, today we've lined up 3 amazing panels, concluding with a stellar keynote. I'm eager to dive right into these conversations right away. I could tell from earlier, the vibes are very good in here. We're ready to just start talking about these issues. But first, I'm just going to take a few minutes to sketch out some broader context for the panels and also give thanks to some folks. In addition to our home institutions of Rutgers and Penn, as well as our respective deans, Dean John Jackson at Penn, Annenberg, and Dean Daphne Lemisch at Rutgers, we also especially want to thank the Independence Public Media Foundation for their generous support, especially towards our digital equity research, which made today's event possible. I also want to give a heartfelt thanks to the awesome Annenberg staff and our incredible tech and facility support, without whom we couldn't do any of this. And thanks also to Mike's wonderful intern, Katrina Maketa, who you probably met right out here, for all of her great work. And of course, I want to thank our postdoctoral fellow, David Berman, and our associate director, Briar Smith, for co-organizing this event with me. David and I started talking about doing some kind of event like this way back in 2019. In the before times, we had just published a book that was advocating for a new deal for the digital age. And so I'm just so thrilled that we're finally having this conversation. It's timely as ever. Of course, Briar is the true force behind everything we do at the MIC Center. And I want to thank her for everything that she does. Speaking of which, Briar gave me some housekeeping notes to share with folks. I wanted to let everyone know that the restrooms are around the corner over here to your left. Also, the Penn, the Wi-Fi code, or there isn't really a code, it's AirPenNetGuest. And I think you can find this on our program, which is on using the QR code, which is included in the flyer, so very high tech. And just a few more words of context about the genesis of this event, why we thought it was timely and what we hope to see come out of it. I think it's safe to say that the internet is failing today. It's failing democracy, and at least part of the problem, a significant part, is the commercial ownership and control, the commercial capture of every layer of the internet. As Ben Tarnoff says in his great book, Internet for the People, which I hope we'll hear more about later today, the core pathology underlying so many of the internet's problems today is because it's treated like a business. It's saturated with market logics, from targeted advertising to digital redlining. But how do we take the internet out of the market? How do we decommodify, deprivatize, decommercialize what has been thoroughly naturalized as a commercial space, an online mall, as Ben likens it to in his book? Is a less capitalist internet even possible? What would a truly public internet dedicated to serving people's needs, not the profit imperatives of a few corporate giants and tech oligarchs, actually look like? To begin to shed light on these questions, we've organized today's 3 panels thematically to focus on different layers of the internet. Because the internet, of course, is not just one monolithic thing. There are multiple layers, multiple components, different faces of the internet. The first panel will focus on problems facing the underlying material infrastructure of the internet, the pipes and wires that bring internet services to our homes and to our devices. We will hear about policy interventions and activist projects that aim to democratize these infrastructures to build out public internet networks such as municipal broadband and to circumvent the likes of Comcast to confront digital inequities based on exclusion and extraction. The second panel will help us think through how we can democratize our platforms in an age of digital monopolies. What role can government regulation and antitrust policy have in making platforms more publicly accountable and less driven by surveillance capitalism? How might we use this moment of crisis to create social media that serve the needs of a multiracial democratic society, working to both reform the dominant platforms but also to build entirely new models based on cooperative governance? And the final panel will look at how the hyper-commercialized internet developed and what we must do to dismantle it and build on the democratic experiments already emerging, as well as labor organizing and working from within some of these platforms. How can we expand on these projects to build an entire public stack from the ground up? What would an internet for the people look like, and how can we get there? And then finally, we have Ben Tarnoff's keynote, which will neatly tie everything together and wrap it all up with clear answers. So I have everything figured out by the end of this symposium. No pressure, Ben. In all seriousness, today is meant to start conversations, not provide final answers to wicked structural problems. The systemic changes that we need will require years of political organizing. But it seems that now is the moment, or should be the moment, for radical projects and, yes, utopian visions that go beyond simply tweaking algorithms or designing better platform moderation and privacy protections, as important as those things are. So today we'll hear from many of the leading scholars and activists who are beginning to coalesce around bold ideas that help us imagine these new vistas. So with that, please let me invite the first panel up, and thank you all for coming out here today. I'm really looking forward to these conversations. Thank you.